Vextar could not sleep. He kept thinking about the human woman and how she had spotted him so easily. In 30 years of killing, no one had ever detected his stealth systems. No one. He decided to learn more about these Deathworlders, his personal computer connected to the Galactic database. He searched for Earth and human homeworld characteristics. What he found made no sense. Earth was listed as a Class 12 Deathworld. Class 12 was the highest rating in the database. Most planets with that rating were marked as unsuitable for life. Yet humans had not just survived there, they had built a civilization. The gravity was 1.7 times galactic standard. Most species would be crushed under that weight. Their bones would break from just walking around. The atmosphere was 21% oxygen. That was toxic to most carbon-based life forms. Too much oxygen caused cellular damage and shortened lifespans dramatically. The weather patterns were insane. Storms that could level cities appeared with only hours of warning. Temperatures swung from deadly hot to deadly cold in the span of a single day. Some regions had no water for months, then flooded completely during rainy seasons. But the life forms were the worst part. Vextar read about Earth's predators with growing disbelief. Creatures called sharks that could smell a single drop of blood from miles away. Pack hunters called wolves that could track prey across hundreds of miles and never gave up the chase. Tiny organisms called bacteria that could kill within hours if they entered the bloodstream. Even the plants were trying to kill everything. Some released airborne toxins. Others had thorns filled with poison. Many could not be eaten without careful preparation, or they would shut down vital organs. How had anything survived on this nightmare world? How had humans not only survived but thrived? Vextar found a section on human evolutionary adaptations. What he read changed everything he thought he knew about the species. Humans were persistence hunters. On a planet where most prey animals were faster and stronger, humans had evolved to simply outlast them. They could run for hours without stopping. They could track wounded animals for days. They never gave up. Their eyes were forward-facing like predators. But they also had excellent peripheral vision. Like prey animals, they had evolved to be both hunter and hunted. Their hands could grip objects with incredible precision or crushing force. Their thumb placement allowed them to use tools in ways no other species could match. But the most terrifying adaptation was their social structure. Humans hunted in groups. They shared information across vast distances. They could coordinate attacks involving hundreds of individuals. And they remembered grudges across generations. Vextar closed the database and sat back in his chair. These humans were not just tough survivors. They were the ultimate predators, evolved on a world that had tried to kill them every day for millions of years. A soft chime indicated someone was approaching his ship. Vextar checked his sensors and saw 3 more human vessels docking at the Nexus. His 4 eyes tracked their movements on the security monitors. The first ship disgorged a family group. 2 adults and 3 children. The children ran around the docking bay, playing some kind of game that involved jumping from platform to platform. The platforms were spaced far apart, too far for most species to jump safely. The human children did it without thinking. One of the children slipped and fell toward a 20-foot drop onto metal decking. Vextar watched in horror, expecting to see the child die. Instead, the child caught himself with one hand on a support beam, hung there for a moment, then swung to a nearby platform like it was part of the game. The parents barely looked over. This was normal for them. The second ship was some kind of scientific vessel. The crew members who emerged were clearly researchers, soft, intellectual types. They were carrying equipment that looked delicate and expensive, but when one of the cases accidentally fell off their cart, it landed on a crew member's foot. The case weighed at least 100 pounds. The human just grunted slightly, picked up the case, and kept walking. He did not even look hurt. The third ship worried Vextar the most. It was a merchant vessel, and the crew was obviously trying to be friendly with the station staff. They were laughing and joking as they worked. But Vextar noticed details the station staff missed. The way the humans moved was too controlled, too aware. When they laughed, their eyes never stopped scanning for threats. When they bent over to pick up cargo, they positioned themselves so they could still see all the exits. These were not soldiers, but they moved like soldiers, because on their world everyone had to think like a soldier just to stay alive. The station alarm suddenly began blaring. Emergency lights flashed red. An automated voice announced a radiation leak in Section C. All personnel were ordered to evacuate immediately. Vextar watched the security monitors as every non-human ran for the escape pods. The radiation leak was lethal. Exposure would kill most species within minutes. The smart thing to do was get as far away as possible and let the automated systems handle the problem. The humans did something different. Instead of running away, they ran toward the danger zone. The family group sent their children to safety. Then the parents grabbed emergency equipment and headed for Section C. The scientists abandoned their research and started organizing rescue teams. The merchant crew began checking their ship's medical supplies. "What are they doing?" Vextar said out loud. His computer answered with another database search result. Apparently, humans had evolved something called an altruistic response to crisis. When faced with danger, their first instinct was not self-preservation. It was helping others. This made no evolutionary sense. Species survived by protecting themselves first. Sacrificing yourself for others was a quick way to remove your genes from the gene pool. But then Vextar read further. On Earth, survival was only possible through group cooperation. A human alone would die quickly, but a group of humans working together could survive almost anything. So evolution had wired them to protect the group even at personal cost. The emergency alarm stopped. The human rescue teams had contained the radiation leak and evacuated everyone from the danger zone. They had done in 20 minutes what the station's automated systems were designed to handle over several hours. When the humans emerged from Section C, they were not celebrating their heroism. They were already talking about how to prevent similar problems in the future. They were analyzing what had gone wrong and how to fix it permanently. Vextar realized something that made his forehands shake. These humans were not just individually dangerous. They were collectively unstoppable. They turned every problem into a learning experience. Every crisis made them stronger. Every challenge was just another puzzle to solve. And they had been doing this for millions of years on a planet that never stopped trying to kill them. The bartender's words came back to him. "That woman over there? She grew up playing in that death trap, and she's not even considered tough by human standards. If Helena was an average human, what were their soldiers like? What were their actual warriors capable of?" Vextar's personal communicator buzzed. A new contract offer. The payment was enormous, more than his last 10 jobs combined. The target was a human scientist named Dr. James Mitchell. The job was simple. Eliminate the target on a research station near human space. Standard assassination contract. The kind of job Vextar had done hundreds of times, but as he looked at the offer, Vextar felt something he had never felt before when reading a contract. He felt doubt. Everything he had learned tonight told him that hunting a human was not like hunting any other prey. These were predators who had evolved to be both hunters and survivors. They were socially cooperative, physically resilient, and mentally adaptable. But the payment was too good to refuse, and Vextar was still the best assassin in known space. He had killed beings much more dangerous than one human scientist. At least he hoped he had. Vextar accepted the contract and began planning his approach. But for the first time in his career, he also began planning what he would do if everything went wrong. Because something told him that when hunting Deathworlders, everything could go very wrong, very quickly. Dr. James Mitchell was supposed to be an easy target. According to his file, he was a xenobiologist studying psychological adaptation mechanisms in extreme environment species. He was 43 years old, had no military training, and spent most of his time looking at plants and small animals. Vextar had tracked him to a research station on Kepler 442b. The planet was listed as moderately hazardous in the Galactic database, which meant it had some dangerous weather and a few predators. For most species, it would be a challenging place to work. For humans, it was apparently considered a pleasant vacation spot. This made no sense to Vextar. He had studied the planetary data. Kepler 442b had gravity slightly higher than galactic standard. The local predators included pack hunters with razor-sharp claws and toxic bite. The weather could change from calm to lethal in minutes. Most species would need environmental suits and armed escorts to survive here. But Dr. Mitchell worked alone, wearing only light clothing and carrying basic research equipment. Vextar had been watching the human for 3 days. Mitchell's routine was predictable. Every morning he left the research station and walked to a canyon about 2 miles away. He spent the day there collecting samples and taking notes. Every evening he returned to the station. The canyon was perfect for an ambush. It had multiple levels and lots of hiding places. The local predators used it as a hunting ground, which would mask any disturbance. And it was far enough from the station that no one would hear anything. Vextar arrived at the canyon 2 hours before dawn. He found the perfect spot, a rocky overhang that gave him a clear view of where Mitchell always worked. His stealth systems made him completely invisible. His sonic blade was charged and ready. All he had to do was wait. He had done this hundreds of times. Wait in perfect stillness. Control his breathing. Become part of the environment. When the target arrived, one quick strike would end it. Simple, professional, profitable. The sun came up. Mitchell arrived right on schedule, walking down the canyon path like he owned the place. He was humming some kind of tune and carrying a small bag of equipment. Vextar watched through his targeting scope. The human looked so ordinary. Medium height, brown hair going gray at the edges, clothes that had seen better days. He moved casually without any apparent awareness of danger. Mitchell reached his usual work spot and set down his bag. He pulled out a small device and began scanning the canyon walls. Vextar's scope showed that the device was just a basic geological scanner, nothing that could detect stealth technology. This was the perfect moment. Mitchell was in the open, focused on his work, completely vulnerable. Vextar activated his sonic blade and prepared to strike. Then Mitchell walked directly toward Vextar's hiding place. Vextar froze. There was no way Mitchell could see him. His stealth systems were military grade. They bent light around his body and masked his heat signature. Even his breathing was filtered to prevent chemical detection. But Mitchell kept walking toward the overhang. He stopped about 10 feet away and sat down on a rock, still examining his scanner readings. Interesting geology here, Mitchell said conversationally. The mineral composition suggests this canyon was formed by water erosion, but the rock patterns indicate seismic activity too. Probably both. He was talking to himself. Vextar remained motionless, waiting for the human to move away. You know, Mitchell continued, on Earth we have a saying about patience in hunting. You can wait for the deer, or you can understand where the deer needs to go. Vextar's 4 eyes widened. Mitchell was not talking to himself. The thing about persistence hunting, Mitchell said, still looking at his scanner, is that it's not about being faster or stronger than your prey. It's about being smarter, understanding behavior patterns, predicting movement. Mitchell finally looked up from his scanner and made eye contact with Vextar's hiding place.
Hello, Vextar.
I've been expecting you. Vextar's stealth systems were still active. There was no possible way Mitchell could see him. But the human was looking directly at him with calm, interested eyes. How? Vextar asked, his voice coming out as a whisper through his system speakers. Several ways, Mitchell said. First, your ship has been in orbit for 3 days, always positioning itself to watch this canyon. Second, you've been moving through the research station's outer sensors, following exactly the path I would use if I wanted to set up an ambush here. Third, someone put a very expensive contract on my life last week, and assassins tend to be predictable in their methods. Mitchell stood up and walked closer to Vextar's position. But mostly, I know you're there because I've been studying your species for the past 6 months. The Zilani are fascinating. Your hunter evolution is very different from ours. You can't see me, Vextar said, confusion clear in his voice. No, I can't, Mitchell agreed. Your stealth technology is excellent, but I don't need to see you to know where you are. That's impossible, Mitchell smiled. Let me guess, you've been in that exact position for about 4 hours. You picked it because it has clear sight lines, good cover, and matches your species' preference for elevated hunting positions. You probably arrived before dawn because that's when most predators feel most confident. Every word was correct. Vextar felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning air. Your species evolved as ambush predators on a world with low gravity and sparse vegetation. Mitchell continued. You learned to wait motionless for long periods, then strike quickly. Very effective strategy for your environment. How do you know all this? Because that's what I do, Mitchell said. I study how different species adapt to their environments. The Zilani homeworld shaped you to be patient, precise, and deadly. But here's the thing. My homeworld shaped me too. Mitchell sat back down on his rock, completely relaxed. Earth taught us to be persistence hunters. We're not as fast as our prey, so we learned to track them until they collapsed from exhaustion. We're not as strong as the predators, so we learned to think our way out of danger. You're just a scientist, Vextar said. On Earth, everyone is a scientist, Mitchell replied. You have to be. Our world changes constantly. New diseases, new predators, new weather patterns, new ways to die. If you can't adapt and learn, you don't survive long enough to have children. Mitchell pulled a small notebook from his bag and started sketching. Take this canyon, for example. Most species would see it as a dangerous place to avoid, but humans would see it as a puzzle to solve. What animals live here? What are their hunting patterns? How does the weather affect them? Where's the safest place to work? He looked up at Vexitar's hiding place again. I've been working here for 2 weeks. I know every predator in this canyon. I know their schedules, their territories, their behavior patterns. When something new shows up, like a Zilani assassin, it disrupts the patterns. What patterns? The screambirds haven't been calling from the north wall for 3 days. That's where they always nest unless something is threatening them. The rock lizards changed their basking schedule. The insect swarms are avoiding the upper canyon levels. Mitchell gestured toward Vextar's position. All because there's a new predator in the area. Vextar felt his confidence cracking. You could be guessing. Could be, Mitchell agreed. But I also hacked your ship's computer yesterday and read your mission files. The words hit Vextar like a physical blow. That's impossible. My ship has military-grade security. Yes, it does, Mitchell said cheerfully. Very impressive encryption. It took me almost 3 hours to break it. 3 hours? Honestly, I was disappointed. Earth children learn to hack systems more secure than that in their computer classes. But then, most species don't grow up on a world where information security can mean the difference between life and death. Mitchell closed his notebook and stood up. So here's the situation, Vextar. You came here to kill me, but you've learned something that's making you nervous. You're starting to realize that humans aren't like other prey species. Vextar said nothing. His 4 hands were still gripping his weapons, but he hadn't moved to use them. You want to know why seasoned killers flee when humans show up? Mitchell continued. It's not because we're stronger or faster. It's because we're different. We don't just survive, we adapt. We don't just fight, we learn. And we never, ever stop. Mitchell smiled, and for the first time, Vextar saw something predatory in the expression. The question now is, what are you going to do with that information? Vextar remained motionless in his hiding place, 4 hands still gripping his weapons. But for the first time in his career, he hesitated to use them. Something about this human made him deeply uneasy. You're stalling, Vextar said finally, trying to talk your way out of death. Actually, no, Mitchell replied, settling more comfortably on his rock. I'm trying to educate you. Do you know why every major criminal organization in the galaxy is pulling their operations out of human space? Because you're dangerous fighters, Mitchell laughed. Vexitar, if it was about fighting, you would have shot me already. The galaxy has plenty of dangerous fighters. The Korath battle clans, the Draconian war priests, the crystal beings from Sirius 9. But criminal organizations still operate in their territories. Then why? Because we're not just fighters. We're detectives. The word meant nothing to Vextar. His translator couldn't find an equivalent in any known language. I'll explain. Mitchell said, on Earth, survival wasn't just about being strong or fast. It was about understanding patterns. A human who couldn't track animals would starve. A human who couldn't read weather signs would die in storms. A human who couldn't predict predator behavior would be eaten. Mitchell pulled out his scanner and showed Vextar the display. See these readings? To most species, this is just random geological data. But to a human, it tells a story. This canyon was formed over millions of years. First water, then earthquakes, then more water. The mineral deposits show where different climate periods occurred. The rock layers reveal ancient volcanic activity. I don't understand the point. The point is that humans evolved to see patterns everywhere. We can't help it. It's how our brains work. Mitchell stood up and began walking around the canyon floor. And when we started moving into galactic space, we brought that skill with us. Mitchell stopped walking and looked directly at Vextar's position again. Tell me, how many jobs have you completed in the last year? 18, Vextar answered automatically, then cursed himself for responding. And how many of those were in human space? Vextar thought about it. None. All my contracts have been in other sectors. Exactly. Do you know why? Because human law enforcement, Agencies have solved more cold cases in the last 5 years than the rest of the galaxy has solved in the last century. Mitchell began walking toward Vextar's hiding place again. Let me tell you about a case study. The Vorthon Assassination Guild operated for over 400 years. They were responsible for approximately 2,000 political murders across 17 star systems. Their method was perfect. Untraceable poisons, airtight alibis, and a network of corrupt officials who ensured investigations went nowhere. I know the Vorthons, Vextar said. They were legends. Were, Mitchell emphasized. Past tense. 6 months ago, a human detective named Sarah Chen was assigned to investigate a Vorthon killing that happened on a space station with heavy human traffic. Chen looked at the case for 3 days, then requested files on every unsolved assassination in the sector for the past 50 years. Mitchell sat down again, this time even closer to Vextar's position. Chen started finding patterns, similar poison types, matching alibis that were just different enough to avoid automated detection. Financial transactions that followed identical patterns. Within 2 weeks, she had identified the entire Vorthon network. That's impossible. The Vorthons were too careful. They were careful by galactic standards, Mitchell corrected. But galactic investigators aren't trained to think like humans. They look for direct evidence, weapons, witnesses, confessions. Humans look for everything else. Mitchell pulled out his notebook again and started sketching. Chen didn't just catch the killers. She mapped their entire organization. She found their safe houses, their funding sources, their corrupt contacts. She identified clients who had hired them decades ago. She even found their training facilities. What happened to them? The organization doesn't exist anymore. Chen didn't just arrest the current members. She unraveled 4 centuries of criminal activity. Every corrupt official, every paid-off witness, every fake alibi. The investigation led to prosecutions in 47 different star systems. Vextar felt cold. One detective did all that? One human detective. And Chen isn't unusual. She's typical. Mitchell looked up from his sketching. Do you want to know what she found most helpful in breaking the case? What? The fact that the Vorthons used the same method for 400 years. To them, consistency was a strength. It proved their technique worked. But to a human, consistency is a pattern, and patterns can be predicted. Mitchell closed his notebook. The galaxy's criminal organizations are fleeing human space because they finally understand what they're dealing with. This isn't about muscle or technology. It's about something much more dangerous, which is persistence, patience, pattern recognition, and a complete inability to let things go. Mitchell stood up and brushed dust off his clothes. Humans hold grudges, Vextar. Not just against individuals, but against systems, against injustice itself. When we see something wrong, we can't stop thinking about it until we fix it. That sounds like a weakness, does it? Let me ask you something. How many times have you killed someone and then forgotten about them completely? Vextar considered the question. Most of them. Once the job is done, I move on to the next contract. Right. That's normal behavior for most predator species. Kill, eat, forget, repeat. Very efficient. Mitchell smiled, but the expression was not pleasant. Humans are different. When someone hurts us, we remember. When someone hurts our family, we remember harder. When someone hurts innocent people, we remember forever. Revenge is expensive, inefficient. Who said anything about revenge? Mitchell asked. I'm talking about justice. Humans don't just want to hurt the people who wronged them. We want to make sure they can't hurt anyone else. Mitchell began walking in a slow circle around the canyon floor. That's why criminal organizations are fleeing. They're not afraid of human vengeance. They're afraid of human justice systems. I don't understand the difference. Vengeance is personal. You kill my friend, I kill you, done. Justice is systematic. You kill my friend, I study you. I learn how you operate. I figure out who taught you, who paid you, who helped you. Then I dismantle your entire network so that no one else has to lose a friend the way I did. Vextar's translator was struggling with some of the concepts Mitchell was using, but the general meaning was clear and it was terrifying. You're saying humans don't just catch criminals, they destroy crime itself. We try to, Mitchell said simply. It's how we're wired. On Earth, if you didn't eliminate threats completely, they would come back stronger. Half measures meant death. Mitchell stopped walking and looked directly at Vextar again. That's why the Shadow Collective canceled all their human contracts. That's why the Korath twins haven't been seen in months. That's why even the dread pirate Tholmar won't operate near human space anymore. Because you catch them. Because we study them. And once we understand how they work, they stop working. Mitchell sat down on his rock one more time. The galaxy's most successful killers built their careers on being unpredictable, but humans are very good at finding patterns in chaos. What looks random to other species looks like a puzzle to us, and humans love solving puzzles. Vextar was quiet for a long time, processing what he had learned. Finally, he asked, "Well, what about me? You know I'm here to kill you. What are you going to do about it?" Mitchell smiled. "I'm going to offer you a job." "What?" "The human government is hiring consultants to help us understand criminal organizations. Your knowledge of the assassination trade would be very valuable. The pay is excellent, the work is challenging, and you'd be helping to make the galaxy safer for innocent people." "You want me to betray my own profession?" "I want you to evolve beyond it," Mitchell said. "The old ways of doing business are dying, Vextar. The question is whether you want to die with them or help build something better." Vexitar considered the offer, and for the first time in his life he wasn't sure what his answer would be. Vextar sat in silence for several minutes, his 4 hands still gripping weapons he no longer felt confident using. Everything he thought he knew about hunting and killing had been turned upside down in the space of one conversation. "You're asking me to become a traitor," he said. "Finally, I'm asking you to become something. More than a killer," Mitchell replied. "The galaxy is changing, Vextar. The old systems that allowed organizations like yours to flourish are breaking down. You can either adapt to the change or be destroyed by it." "And if I refuse your offer?" Mitchell shrugged. "Then you'll try to kill me. I'll defend myself and one of us will die. Probably you, since I've had 3 days to prepare for this conversation and you're still thinking like a traditional predator." The casual confidence in Mitchell's voice made Vexitar's skin crawl. This human was not afraid. After everything Vexitar had told him, after seeing his weapons and knowing his reputation, Mitchell was completely calm. "You think you can beat me in a fight?" "I think I can survive long enough for help to arrive," Mitchell said. "I'm not a warrior, Vextar. I'm a scientist, but I've spent my whole life learning how to stay alive in dangerous situations." "What help?" Mitchell touched something on his belt. Immediately, Vextar's enhanced hearing picked up the sound of approaching aircraft. Multiple vehicles moving fast. "I told you I've been expecting you," Mitchell said. "Did you really think I wouldn't take precautions?" Vextar's stealth systems showed him 3 human military shuttles approaching the canyon. "They would arrive in less than 2 minutes. You set a trap." "I offered you a choice," Mitchell corrected. "The trap was your decision to come here with murder in mind instead of curiosity." Vextar activated his sonic blade. The weapon hummed to life, its frequency calibrated to liquefy organic tissue. He had used it to kill hundreds of targets. "One strike was always enough." "Last chance, Vextar," Mitchell said, not moving from his rock. "Evolution or extinction." Instead of answering, Vextar struck. He moved faster than any human should have been able to track. His sonic blade swept toward Mitchell's neck in a killing arc that had never failed. Mitchell wasn't there. The human had rolled backward off his rock, moving with speed and precision that matched Vextar's own. The sonic blade cut through empty air where Mitchell's head had been a split second before. Vextar spun, bringing 2 more blades into play. His forearms moved in a deadly pattern that created a cage of cutting energy around Mitchell's position. Mitchell ducked under one blade, sidestepped another, and caught the third with a small metal tool he had pulled from his equipment bag. The tool absorbed the sonic energy and redirected it harmlessly into the ground. "Sonic dampener," Mitchell explained conversationally while avoiding the 4th blade. "Developed specifically for dealing with Zilani weapons. We've been studying your species' technology for months." Vextar pressed his attack using every technique he had learned in 30 years of killing. He was faster than Mitchell, stronger, and had more weapons. But somehow he couldn't land a hit. The human moved like water, flowing around attacks instead of blocking them. When Vexitar tried to corner him, Mitchell used the canyon's terrain to create new escape routes. When Vextar attempted to predict his movement, Mitchell changed tactics completely. "This is the difference between our species," Mitchell said, while evading another flurry of strikes. "You evolved to be the perfect ambush predator. Fast, precise, deadly, but only in specific circumstances." Vextar activated his stealth systems and vanished from sight. "This always worked. No prey could fight what they couldn't see." "Humans evolved to be adaptable predators," Mitchell continued, his voice coming from a new position. "We learned to hunt in any environment against any prey, using any available tools. Vextar struck at the sound of Mitchell's voice and hit nothing. The human had moved again. "Your stealth technology bends light very effectively," Mitchell said from somewhere else in the canyon. "But it doesn't eliminate sound, scent, or ground vibration. And on Earth, we learned to hunt animals that could see, hear, and smell better than we could." The first human shuttle landed at the canyon's rim. Soldiers began rappelling down ropes, but they didn't seem to be in any hurry. They were giving Mitchell time to finish whatever he was doing. Vextar realized he was losing. Not just the fight, but something more fundamental. His entire understanding of how hunting worked was wrong when applied to humans. "You're toying with me," he said, deactivating his stealth systems and stopping his attack. "I'm teaching you," Mitchell replied, emerging from behind a rock formation. "Everything you've tried is exactly what we expected you to try. Ambush tactics, superior speed, stealth technology, multiple weapons, all very effective against most prey species. But not against humans. But not against humans," Mitchell agreed. "We've been dealing with predators like you for millions of years. Big cats, pack hunters, ambush killers. We learned to survive by being smarter, not stronger." The soldiers had reached the canyon floor but maintained their distance. Vextar could see them clearly now. 6 humans in light armor carrying weapons but not aiming them. They were ready to intervene if necessary, but they were letting Mitchell handle the situation. "How long have you been planning this?" Vextar asked. "Since the moment the contract was placed on my life," Mitchell said. "We've been monitoring galactic assassination markets for months. When your name appeared in connection with my case, we researched your methods, your technology, your psychological profile. You knew I would come here. We knew you would choose this canyon. It's the obvious ambush site for a Zilani assassin targeting someone with my routine. You're predictable because you're good at what you do, and what you do follows patterns." Mitchell walked over to his equipment bag and started packing his tools. "That's the real reason criminal organizations are fleeing human space, Vextar. It's not that we're stronger or more violent. It's that we make them predictable. I don't understand. Crime works when it's chaotic, when investigators can't find patterns, when each incident seems random and unconnected." Mitchell shouldered his bag and started walking toward the approaching soldiers. "But humans are very, very good at finding order in chaos. So you destroy the chaos. We study the chaos until it becomes order. Then we disrupt the order until the system collapses." Mitchell turned back to look at Vextar. "The galaxy's criminals built their power on being unpredictable. We made them predictable. Now they're powerless." One of the soldiers approached them. She was young, female, and carried herself with casual confidence that reminded Vextar of Mitchell. "Everything under control, Doc?" she asked. "I think so," Mitchell replied. "Vextar, this is Captain Rodriguez. She's part of the joint task force that's been dismantling assassination networks across this sector." Rodriguez nodded politely to Vextar.
"Sir, we've read your file."
"Very impressive career. We could use someone with your expertise." "Doing what?" "Hunting other hunters," she said simply. "The old system is breaking down, but there are still dangerous people out there. We need help finding them before they hurt innocent people." Vextar looked around the canyon. 6 human soldiers, 1 human scientist, and himself. 2 hours ago, he had been one of the most feared killers in the galaxy. Now he felt like a student who had failed an important test. "What happens if I say no?" "You'll be arrested and tried for attempted murder," Rodriguez said matter-of-factly. "The evidence is pretty clear, but considering you stopped your attack and haven't actually hurt anyone, you'd probably get a relatively light sentence, maybe 20 years, and if I say yes, you help us make the galaxy safer," Mitchell said. "The work is harder than assassination. The hours are longer, and you'll be fighting people as dangerous as you used to be. But you'll be building something instead of destroying it." Vextar considered his options: 20 years in prison, or a chance to start over doing something that might actually matter. For the first time in his adult life, the choice was easy. "Where do I sign up?" Mitchell smiled. "Welcome to the team, Vextar. Now let's go catch some real criminals." 6 months later, Vextar stood in the briefing room of a human law enforcement vessel, looking at photos of a slave trading network that stretched across 12 star systems. His job was to infiltrate their organization and gather intelligence on their operations. It was the most challenging work he had ever done, and for the first time in his life, he was proud of what he did for a living. The galaxy's most dangerous criminals were still running from humans, but now Vextar was one of the ones chasing them. Vextar the Blade Singer sat in the darkest corner of the Nexus bar, watching the crowd through 4 different eyes. Each of his forearms rested on a different weapon. The bar was full of the galaxy's most dangerous people, and every one of them knew to stay away from his table. The Korath Nexus was a place where killers came to do business. It floated in empty space far from any government. Here assassins met their handlers. Bounty hunters picked up new contracts. Mercenaries sold their services to the highest bidder. And everyone knew the rules. No killing on station, no questions asked, and credits always came first. Vextar had been coming here for 30 years. He was the best assassin in known space. His bio showed 247 confirmed kills across 40 different star systems. When he used his sonic blade, enemies died before they even knew he was there. The sound waves turned their insides to liquid. Quick, clean, profitable. Tonight felt different, though. The bar was too quiet. Too many empty tables. Where were the Korath twins? Where was Shadowstep Krill? These killers never missed a gathering night. A young Terran woman walked into the bar. She was short and stocky, wearing a simple gray jumpsuit. Her hair was tied back in a practical knot. She looked around the room like she was lost. The entire bar went silent. Vextar watched her through his secondary eyes while keeping his primary eyes on the room. Every killer in the place was suddenly very interested in their drinks. The infamous Razor Cath actually moved to a different table, farther from the human. This was strange. The woman looked harmless. She was clearly not military. Her clothes said civilian freight pilot. She had no visible weapons. She was maybe 5.5 feet tall and looked soft around the edges. But the room's deadliest predators were acting like prey. The human walked to the bar and ordered something called coffee. The bartender, a 6-armed Zalak who could mix poison into drinks without anyone seeing, was shaking. Actually shaking while serving her. "Excuse me," the human said to the bartender. Her voice was friendly with a slight accent that sounded pleasant. "I'm looking for a cargo handler. My ship's computer says someone here can help with heavy freight." The bartender pointed to a table across the room with one trembling arm. The human nodded, smiled, and walked away. As soon as she left the bar area, conversation started again. But they were different, hushed, worried. "Why is everyone acting so strange?" Vextar asked the bartender when he went for another drink. The Zilak looked around nervously. "You don't know? That's a Deathworlder." "A what?" "Human, from Earth, Class 12 Deathworld." The bartender's voice dropped to a whisper. "Haven't you heard what's been happening? The Korath organization just pulled all their people from the Centauri sector. The Shadow Collective canceled every contract in human space. Even the dread pirate Thulmar turned down a job because it was too close to a human colony." Vextar's 4 eyes focused on the bartender. "That makes no sense. Look at her. She's tiny. She has no weapons. She's not even trying to look dangerous." "That's what makes it worse," the bartender said. "My cousin works shipping manifests at the big station near Sol. He says the humans list their homeworld as moderate climate on their official forms. Moderate. But when you check the actual planetary data, the Zalak shuddered. Gravity that would crush most species. Weather that changes from burning hot to deadly cold in hours. Animals that hunt in packs and can run for days without stopping. Plants that kill you if you touch them. The whole planet tries to murder everything on it every single day." "So?" Vextar said. "Tough planet makes tough people. That doesn't explain why seasoned killers are running scared." The bartender leaned closer. "Because that woman over there, she grew up playing in that death trap. She learned to walk on a world that kills children for fun. Everything that didn't kill her made her stronger. And she's not even considered tough by human standards." Vextar looked at the human again. She was talking to the cargo handler, gesturing with her hands as she explained something. She laughed at something he said. Her laugh was warm and genuine. "She looks normal," Vextar said. "Watch," the bartender said. The cargo handler was showing the human some kind of device. It looked heavy, like it needed 2 people to lift. The human picked it up with one hand while still talking. She turned it over to examine it, holding it like it weighed nothing. The device was made of solid titanium alloy. Vextar's eyes widened. "My cousin says that's not even unusual," the bartender continued. "He's seen human children playing games that would count as military training for our best soldiers. He watched a human grandmother chase off a pack of Danubian ice wolves with a walking stick. A walking stick. Those things are apex predators." The human woman was walking back toward the bar now. Vextar noticed things he had missed before. Her movements were too smooth, too balanced. When she walked, she was quiet. Not trying to be quiet, naturally quiet. Like a hunter. Her eyes were scanning the room constantly, but in a casual way. She was tracking every person, every exit, every potential threat. She was doing it without thinking about it, like breathing. "Coffee ready?" she asked the bartender cheerfully. Yes, of course," the Zealec stammered. She picked up her cup and took a sip. That's good. Reminds me of home. We had to make coffee with boiled swamp water during the rainy season. The water had to be boiled because of the flesh-eating bacteria, but it gave the coffee a nice earthy taste. She said this like she was talking about pleasant weather. "Flesh-eating bacteria?" the bartender asked weakly. "Oh, that's nothing," she said, waving her hand. "The water parasites were worse. But you learn to deal with these things. Builds character." She smiled and walked toward the exit. Just as she reached the door, her personal communicator beeped. She answered it, and Vextar's enhanced hearing picked up the conversation. "Helena, this is cargo control. We have a problem with Container 7. The magnetic clamps failed and it's shifted against the hull. We need industrial equipment to move it back." "How heavy?" Helena asked. "About 4 tons. "I'll handle it," she said. "Be there in 10 minutes. Vexitar followed her out of the bar. He had to know what he was dealing with. He found her at her ship, a mid-sized freight hauler. Container 7 was indeed pressed against the hull at an awkward angle. The container was huge, made of reinforced steel, and clearly much too heavy for one person to move. Helena looked at the problem for about 30 seconds. Then she braced her feet, put her shoulder against the container, and pushed. The 4-ton container moved. Slowly, with obvious effort, but it moved. She repositioned herself twice, pushing the massive box back into its proper position. When she was done, she wiped sweat from her forehead and called cargo control. "Problem solved," she said. "The clamps should engage properly now." Vextar watched from the shadows, his 4 hands unconsciously checking his weapons. This woman had just moved something that should have required mechanical assistance, and she had done it like it was routine maintenance. As Helena walked back toward her ship's entrance, she suddenly stopped and looked directly at his hiding spot. "You know," she said in a conversational tone, "on most worlds, following someone to their ship would be considered threatening behavior." Vextar froze. His stealth systems were military grade. No one could see him. "But I'm sure you're just curious," Helena continued. "That's understandable. We're new to the neighborhood." She smiled, a genuine, friendly smile. "Have a good evening." She disappeared into her ship, leaving Vextar standing in the shadows, completely stunned. How had she seen him? How had she moved that container? And why wasn't she afraid? For the first time in his 30-year career, Vextar the Bladesinger felt something he had never felt before when looking at a target. He felt afraid.